Welcome to Man Cove Wellbeing and the My Trauma, Your Trauma series with me, Owen Morgan. I want to share my trauma journey and that of others. We will also look at the world of trauma healing, support and research, including guests who specialise in helping those overcome their trauma. My Trauma, Your Trauma is here to explore human experience. Hi everyone, Owen Morgan here from Man Cove Wellbeing, and I just want to welcome you to my farewell episode. So this is going to be very emotional and a little bit sad, I just wanted to take some time out to share what I've learned on my journey through My Trauma, Your Trauma and the Man Cove Wellbeing talk show. And just to thank you all for all your amazing support, especially my amazing guests and all you amazing listeners. And I just wanted to reflect on a few things and just let you know later on today in this episode, I will be sharing the finale 2 chats that I haven't put out yet, which was a short conversation with John Eli about self-belief, the importance of self-belief and how to nurture it. And also an amazing chat with Kieran of Breaking Barriers Australia, where we talk about the power of nature for mental health. Those 2 episodes are due to go out. So I thought I'd pop them at the end of this amazing farewell episode. So do hang around for that one. There is a timestamp below if you just want to skip straight to those conversations. And thank you to both of those for being part of that. I just didn't want everyone to miss out on these amazing chats. But yeah, I just wanted to, this started back in December 2019, so this was all pre-COVID as well, so it's crazy to think this started before the craziness of this year. But yeah, it's been an absolutely fantastic journey. And on the website, I've got my farewell message for the show. And I know I can see online that there's a lot of downloads going on. It's about 20 downloads, 30 downloads a day. So I can see that it's getting traction and there's obviously a lot of regular listeners. And I'm sorry to you guys for not being able to continue to listen to the conversations that we have here at Man Cove Wellbeing. But I'm just going to read out my farewell message to you all, just in case you've missed it. It's out over on the website so you can see it. But I just want you to know that even though I will not be continuing with the interviews and making videos on the website, the podcast channels and the YouTube channels will all remain up so you can enjoy this long term and new audiences can come along and enjoy them too. You know, I've interviewed over 70 people on this journey and made probably about 50 videos at least, not to mention all the poetry ones that were linked to Man Cove. They're all available for you to watch whenever you like, so please do go and check them out if you want. So here's my farewell message that I popped on the website and popped onto social media. I want to say thank you for being so supportive and passionate about what I have done with Man Cove. Means the world. You are all amazing. To be a true mental and emotional health advocate and show what it means to take loving and compassionate care of myself, I need to see that spending 10 years in the service of others across many projects and businesses has left me burnt out, depleted, and unable to create a healing space for my own traumas. This journey will take an expansively long time to flow. I love Man Cove Wellbeing with all my heart, but as always, I put the needs of others and my missions ahead of my own well-being. People who know me well know I have been in this circle for a long time, and it stems from my own childhood trauma. It is time to face it and release myself from the burden, to surrender and process my stuck suffering. I work full-time now and have a 4-year-old stepson to be present for. COVID allowed me to make Man Cove thrive, and I've loved every moment. There are 7 more podcast episodes that come out in September, including a farewell podcast from me. Now, guys, all of those episodes are already out now over on the channel, so go and check them out if you want to. So please do tune in for those. The YouTube channel, podcast channels, and Instagram page will remain open for people to use and enjoy, so no content will be wasted. I want all my amazing guests to have their stories and messages heard. These platforms will remain for people to watch and listen, so that's YouTube, Instagram, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Podbean. I will return in some form in the future as creativity is in my bones and I love wellness exploration. I feel a book may be on the horizon. My poet background, my love for music will likely flow when my healing journey comes towards a safe space within my body and mind. Please do enjoy the last 7 podcasts due for release, and thank you again for being you and being so awesome in your support of me. If you want to keep in touch with me, then please do add me as a friend on Facebook. There's a link on the website for you guys, and my personal Instagram page is now set up, and there's also a link on the website for that, but I'll pop them in the description of this video and podcast anyway. So if you're a regular listener and you want to connect more with me on a friendship level, then please just head over and do that. No problem at all. I need to send me a message to say who you are, though, if I don't know you already, just so I know I'm adding the right people. So that's Man Cove Wellbeing over and out. May this act of self-compassion inspire you to look inwards and provide love to your own beautiful being. So essentially what's happening here is that I feel like I'm 80% there on my healing journey with trauma. And what I really loved about meeting all these people is really seeing what it takes to release ourselves and surrender ourselves from the baggage and the pain and the past experiences that we hold on to. And without Man Cove Wellbeing, I wouldn't have learned about polyvagal theory, which changed my life, and many other modalities along the way too. But I am constantly exhausted, constantly not having a life and doing things that nurture my soul. And that's fine. We've done some great work, but I want this to be a true act of self-compassion. I love Man Cove, and to walk away is extremely difficult, but I want you to all at home to understand the level of what it can take to put yourself first and think about self-care. Sometimes these sacrifices need to be made for the good of our overall being, mind, body and spirit. So I think that's obviously quite a useful message to show when it comes to the level of trauma and self-care. But yeah, I just want to reflect on all the amazingness of the shows, really. I'm sure a lot of you that have been with me on the journey. The My Trauma, Your Trauma series started months ago now with Millie Gomez of Letter Beal Counselling. She's absolutely amazing. And I've been turning a lot of her blogs into videos for the YouTube channel. So anything between sort of 3-4 minutes all the way up to 9 minutes. So if you get a chance, head over to YouTube and you'll see the Insights in 5 series and sort of the educational videos generally. A lot of that content did come from Millie. So thank you, Millie, for everything you've done. She was episode 1 of My Trauma, Your Trauma. Absolutely amazing episode. And before I carry on with the My Trauma, Your Trauma journey, I just want to do a big shout out to Stephen Truelove, Daryl Osborne and Dave Furness. Steve and Daryl started in series 1. We brought on guests and talked about all things wellness, focused on a certain topic. And I just want to thank Steve and Daryl especially from the beginning, who supported me and became patrons really early on. We covered some amazing topics, so please do head over and check that out. The first series was how to deal with, and the second series was how to use things for improved mental health. The most popular one was our self-confidence, self-esteem episode that gets constant downloads, seems to be very, very popular. Thank you to all the amazing guests we had on. At the end of series 1, we had the episode 10, I think it was, and there was 9 men on a call, previous guests and friends of mine, all talking, wellness as a group of guys, and that was fascinating stuff. So do go and check that out. And also, I want to thank you, Dave Furness, who came in the last few episodes of that series, but he was a big part of my journey. He's a really good friend of mine, and I've met a lot of amazing, wonderful people along the way. And Dave really, really helped me from his trauma-informed perspective. I was on his podcast, he was on mine, and I feel unbelievably blessed to have met some of these men, as I did with John Eli too, who I met at the beginning. We did an episode on mindset coaching, and John's always been there for me over in the States, and it's an honor to sort of end the show with him. It's been pretty beautiful to have that. But it started off with the group chat with me, Steve and Dave and Daryl. Dave came later, but that was the early episodes that we started doing before My Trauma, Your Trauma came along. But the more I went on this journey with Man Cove, the more I realized that trauma was something I was fascinated by, and it was really amazing to deep dive in that. And I just wanted to share the 3 things that I learned about what it takes to recover from trauma and mental health struggles. There's 3 key things I saw in every episode that I did. I'd done about 45 episodes on trauma with guests, and I started to see a really key message here with 3 things. So number 1 is safety is needed. Without safety, there is no healing. I noticed that was starting to pan out in every answer that I had from guests. So safety being in a safe space, as in physical safe space. Some level of safety within your body is required to process things in your body. You need to be moving out of fight and flight and shut down to try and get a sense of safe and social for your nervous system, for safety to be nurtured, really. So it's a physical space within your body, and also being held safely by a therapist or a friend or whatever it may be. I think without safety, there is no healing. I think it's very difficult to learn without safety as well, on all levels, school all the way through to adult life. Huge. That was number 1. Number 2 was to be seen, heard, held, and understood. I really started to see that panning out as the stories were getting told to me, how important it is to be seen unconditionally and without judgment, and being held in that space, so people to really hear you deeply, and maybe even be able to see what's going on for you without words, through body language and that kind of stuff. Really, really important part of the process, that co-regulation, which I think most of us who have elements of safe and social in our existence will look out for. So that's number 2. The number 3 is the surrendering to what's going on in this very moment, the sitting with the good times, the bad times, the joy, the pain, and removing that resistance. I learned a lot about how resistance ended up being the thing that kept us in suffering. So we have our initial pain, the initial shock, the hard time, and we don't process what's going on, and it's very uncomfortable to carry that kind of pain around with us, and that becomes suffering in the long term, just resisting. And there is an element of letting go and surrendering to what is, even if it may be really, really painful. If you can find a safe space and to be seen and held, you can then start to sit with that pain of depression, anxiety, overthinking, whatever it may be, and allow it to shift and change. And there's many modalities that you can reach out for. And it may be well worth listening to an episode that I did with Victoria. I think it was series 3, Victoria Donahue, where we talked about all the different modalities that she offers. It was an amazing chat, and it gave us some real insight into what's out there. But sometimes it's not even about the therapy you're having. It's about the therapist you're with, your intention, what pain that you're carrying can depend on what modality you need. But some people may get through it without even having a therapist at all. But the main thing to remember is that, there has to be an allowing going on in this very moment, a mindful allowing to be held, to allow these sensations to flow as they need to, for you to complete the trauma process. And those 3 things are huge. And if you walk away with anything from this journey of listening to the podcasts and watching the videos, it's those 3 things. Number 1, safety is needed. Number 2, to be seen, held, heard, and understood. And 3, to surrender and remove the resistance that you have in our mission to protect ourselves from pain. It's natural to avoid that. That's why we're wired. And there's a big thing they talk about with negativity bias too, how we are kind of wired to look for danger, and sometimes miss all the good stuff, because negativity bias is a thing that we sort of carry around with us, especially with our thoughts. So they're the 3 things that I learned about on this journey, and I hope that's really useful to you. And like I said, we're going to be speaking to John and Kieran a little bit later on. But yeah, just going back to the journey, really, I just wanted to say that I hope that there's been little nuggets of information for you that have been really useful on your own healing journey, because I think when we can start to inform ourselves around trauma and mental health and what it takes, the more we can start to shift and change, and things start to move around a little bit and create some space for other experiences and other daily practices and other sensations to arise. And if it wasn't for this journey, I wouldn't have met many of the people that have helped me on mine. But I can tell that there's a lot of shame in my being, a lot of people pleasing going on, trying to be seen by others to make me feel better. And at times I do struggle to not have anything to do, or to be alone, or to be bored. I find it very uncomfortable. So I'm really looking forward to going away and processing some of that with my coach, and maybe some other therapy work, and we'll have to see. But I've got a great life. I've got a great partner and a great stepson. I now work full time. After COVID, my massage business really took a hit. So I'm now working 40 hours a week, doing night shifts. It's pretty brutal, but it's allowing me loads of time to listen to a podcast while I'm doing it, which is great. So I'm going to go away for a while. I don't know how long, to create space for me to process what's left and what's going on for me. And I hope that is a message to you guys to do the same if you need to. We tend to get a little bit bogged down with modern day life. It can be tricky. So I'm going to do what is right, really, as a true message of all these kind of things. I am probably going to do some training in coaching and some psychology training too at some point in the future, but that's not for right now. I will be back with a project in the future. It probably won't be Man Cove Wellbeing, but this is my legacy. I leave this legacy behind me with YouTube and the podcast channels. I also did something called it's now called the Global Wellbeing Network. And if you head over to YouTube and the link below, there's a whole channel. I think there's 300 videos on there of part of the of that community. And on there, you get to see lots of interviews I did in person on camera with people all over the UK as I traveled the country to learn about complementary health. So there's a whole channel there as well. And also Poets of the Cove, where we convert poems into short films. And I did that with a lot of my female friends. And then towards the end with some people like Zach from Into the Dark Blue podcast, absolutely amazing guy. And we converted one of his poems. So Poets of the Cove YouTube channel is also up. So you can go and check out some of that. It's very mental health informed. So there's plenty of content out there for you to enjoy. I just wanted to take some time out now to thank everybody that was involved in that. So you know about Minnie Gomez being part of the videos. There was a range of other people involved in that too, so go and head over. One of our most popular videos was Polyvagal 101. That was put out twice in different forms. Absolutely amazing episode about polyvagal theory. But as always, thank you, Dave, Steve, and Daryl, for everything you did with that podcast and all the guests on that show. I met an amazing guy through that. Well, it was actually through a friend at the Soul Spa in Bath, and we met up on that. Mike Langrudi, who set up his own podcast called The Vulnerability Project. So go and check that out. Absolutely amazing. What a guy, what a story. And now he's got this amazing podcast set from that. And I wouldn't have met that amazing guy if it wasn't for this either. So, you know, there's plenty of reasons to be grateful. But just going through the series of My Trauma, Your Trauma, I just want to thank... Let's bring it up here where we are. There we are. So I just want to thank Minnie Gomez for episode 1, Bethany Hof. It was absolutely amazing to talk with you about your journey with everything, and your recovery was just, mind-blowing. Kieran of Breaking Barriers Australia, transcending my trauma journey. One absolutely amazing episode that was, with his sleep deprivation. Wow, that was very, very powerful. And also the amazing Tom Hatton from Holistic Transitioning. That's absolutely amazing conversation with him about his journey from PTSD to public speaking. Absolutely awesome. Big shout out to Sarah Wainwright, where we talked all about trauma-informed parenting. She was absolutely amazing. She's just been so supportive. Bit of a mum to Man Cove, I think. So thank you, Sarah. Absolutely amazing chat with you. Amazing chat with Lee Michael Walton. His story is, wow, it's huge. Complete breakdown that he went on to come out the other side and have his breakthrough. So go and check out Lee's conversation. It's all series 1. A big shout out to Craig King Cooper in episode 7. Absolutely amazing guy who's gone off now to make his own podcast, part of Uplift Kings. And he's doing some amazing work there as he started to go on his journey of discovering self-love, and that really saved his life. So big shout out to you, Craig. You're doing amazing things. Big shout out to Brett Rivero, where we talked about yoga and the breath for trauma recovery, where we just talked about the power of yoga and embodiment. Absolutely amazing guy. That's well worth a listen. And then a big shout out to my good friend Shane from Talk to Shane, all about breaking the stigma. He's doing some amazing work on Instagram with Talk to Shane, so go and check that out. Absolutely amazing dude. We had a really, really interesting chat. Very, very cool. Then we finished up the episode with the amazing Simon Jacobs, where we talked about what he uses with supporting people on their trauma recovery journey. He is a psychotherapist, trainer of fellow psychotherapists. Absolutely amazing guy. So go and check it out. Series 2, I sat down with my good friend Emerald McLeod. We talked about her trauma, her addiction, and a very, very intense upbringing. Very, very powerful. And herself and many other of the people you're hearing about were part of the magazine show, My Trauma, Your Trauma, which has short segments all about, various well-being aspects and how it's all linked to trauma. So that whole team, you're all amazing. I love you so much. It was so, so good. We did 4 episodes of that in the end. It was brilliant. Big shout out to Owen Chesters, who was a patron, as was Emerald, where he supported me financially with its work. And he has an amazing, empowering story about the effects of disability and how he used that for good moving forward. Absolutely amazing, guys. Check out that. Big shout out to Kimberly Stone. We talked about her journey from PTSD to life doula. Absolutely amazing woman, doing amazing things. And really, really raw authenticness flowing through Kimberly. Amazing. Then I finally got to meet Dave for the first time, and we did an amazing episode around vulnerability and coaching and trauma, hearing a bit about his story and what he's doing with his amazing podcast. So big shout out to you to Dave. You're an absolute legend. Then I sat down with the very inspiring Brody Colts, who told me all about his journey through his struggles as a kid and his ADHD. And he was formerly the wellness guy, and now I think it's Brody Colts, is his actual name now for his Instagram. We had an amazing chat. He's a really good friend of mine, and it's been a real blessing to know him. So thank you, Brody. Big shout out to my friend Stella Stati. Known her for years. Absolutely amazing human being that works with women with disordered eating. We had an amazing chat about disordered eating and how it links to trauma. Absolutely amazing human being who's not far from me, so I'll be able to see you a lot, Stella. Really looking forward to that. So go and check that out. Then my amazing friend Darren Clark. We've been on many projects together. I've known him for years. Absolutely amazing guy who is leading the dyslexia awareness charge with Global Dyslexia Association. Doing amazing work. Darren's an absolute legend. So go and check out that amazing chat with trauma and dyslexia. Big shout out to Zach from Into the Dark Blue. I know we've mentioned him already, but he's doing some amazing work with his podcast. Very creative guy, amazing poetry stuff that he does, and he's been a very good friend of mine, so much love to you. Big shout out to Dawn Thompson, where we talked about love and relationships within trauma. Very, very experienced lady, and we got on so well, and it's a fantastic chat. I really recommend that if you're struggling with love and relationships in regards to your healing journey. Then we finish up the series with an amazing chat about polyvagal theory and the power of safety with John Eli and Dave Furness. We open up for about an hour and a half about polyvagal theory. It's very, very powerful. I recommend it massively. It's huge for many of us, and it's helped a lot of the therapists out there as well with their work. So check out that polyvagal episode. Then we moved on to series 3. I was really getting into my flow now. Had an amazing chat with Soph Beresford, about her anxiety and supporting her loved ones after the death of her dad. And she is just absolutely amazing, doing amazing stuff with her blog, Like I Care. And she's just awesome, so go and check her out. Then I sat down with the amazing Jeremy Green, where we talked about social anxiety and his school life trauma. He had a really tough time, but he's gone on to do the Social Ninjas podcast with his friend Kyle. Absolutely amazing podcast, and he's on doing lots of many initiatives, including his free hug stuff. So go and check out Jeremy's work. It's very powerful. I sat down with the amazing Chris Ali, where we talked about trauma, the mind, and happiness. So how happiness plays a part in trauma recovery and how we can engage with that and what it actually means to engage with happiness, full stop. Chris is a great guy, good friend of mine now. And go and check out what he's up to on Instagram. Absolutely awesome. Big shout out to Victoria Donahue, who sat down with me and we talked all about her trauma healing modalities. Absolutely amazing lady over in Canada. And it was just an amazing chat, to be honest with you, talking about all the work she does. I know it was a very popular episode, lots of downloads, lots of amazing feedback. So thank you, Victoria. Then I sat down with my friend Nicholas Lowry from the States. I talked about his comeback journey. He has his own podcast too, where he interviews people on their comeback journeys. Amazing guy, really, really inspiring. Go check out his work. He's also a mentor and doing some really, really good work with mental health. Absolutely amazing. Then I sat down with James Wheeler, absolutely awesome dude. We talked about healing suicide. He attempted suicide and came out the other side. And he's doing some really good work with fitness and holistic health all combined. And he's just a really, really cool guy. So go and check him out too. Amazing. Then I sat down with the amazing Ravi, who talked a lot about trauma-informed yoga and being embodied. We had a really deep dive into all of that. He's a very, very wise man over in India with his partner at the moment, and he supported me massively. We're building a community for me to be part of, to feel seen in my Instagram, also my Instagram side of things. Absolutely amazing. Love you, Ravi. Thank you for everything you do. So go and check that out. Then I sat down with the amazing Christina Giamalva, who told us all about her work with trauma recovery and her work with piece by piece, and we just connected straight away. And she, again, like Sarah Wainwright, was kind of like a Man Cove mum for me, always been there and supported me through everything. And it was an absolutely amazing deep dive into what it is to be human. She's an amazing lady, and I really recommend that show. It's fantastic. I sat down with the amazing Phil, who is on the Positive Mindset Charge on Instagram. He's doing some amazing work in and around positive mindset and how we can integrate that into our mental health journey and recovery. He was also going to be part of the Poets of the Cove. He's an amazing poet, singer. He's done some amazing work on his Instagram channel. So go and check out Phil's stuff because it's really, really cool. So I highly recommend that. And that completed series 3. It's absolutely amazing way to finish. Then we moved into series 4, which was really awesome, where I sat down with the amazing Jason of We At One, where we talked all about the IBS links to trauma and mental health. He was an absolutely amazing guy. Please go and check out what he's up to. He's training to become a life coach, and he's just doing amazing work. He's got a YouTube channel, and the IBS chat was fascinating. So go and check that out. Then I sat down with Elias Abdel Ahad, and it was just an absolutely amazing chat about the spiritual science of healing. I learned so much I didn't know about, and seeing the other side to the trauma recovery journey. Really, really interesting stuff. So please go and check out what he's up to. Very cool. Then I sat down with the awesome Malcolm Stern, who is about to release his book, Slay Your Dragons with Compassion. And he talked about losing his daughter to suicide and the impact that took on his journey as a psychotherapist. His book is going to be amazing, and he's amazing. So please go and check that out. Then I started to wind up the Man Cove journey. At this point, I knew it was coming to an end. And it was a very special time, the last 4 episodes I was involved in. So I chatted with the girls, Nikki and Dr. Alyssa from Thanks. It's the Trauma podcast. They've got an amazing podcast, and all 3 of the girls on that show all had their husbands become transgender and become a man to a woman. So they had a similar trauma journey, but we talked all about the impacts of that and that sort of bombshell that came along into their lives and how they dealt with that. They're amazing people. Please go and check out their podcast. It is awesome. Then I sat down with the amazing Annie Parrish of CPTSD Warrior, and she was just, wow, it just blew my mind how inspiring she was after the horrendous journey she'd been through as a child, and how she'd come out the other side and using it as a way of helping others and allowing people to understand that people have been where, other people have been where she's been, can have an element of hope there. And it was a very emotional conversation, and it was a complete honor to meet her, and she's been a good friend ever since we met. So thank you, Annie, you're amazing. Then I ended the last 2 episodes with 2 very special men. So Joseph from Humble You Media, where we talked about conscious mindset and empowerment. He's just such an amazing guy, doing amazing stuff. Go and check out Humble You Media podcast. I listen to that all the time. He's doing amazing work. He's an amazing dude. So go and check him out. He's doing a lot of good work around consciousness side of things. Absolutely awesome. Then I sat down with a very special guy, Sean Houlihan, where we talked about tension, intention, and his story. So we just talked about how he works as a coach and uses intention with his work. And he just really inspired me to see, through some good techniques, daily practices, and a way of thinking about things, we can really start to shift and change. He has a background in massage like me, involved in fitness too, yoga, all kinds of stuff. And he's hoping to do some retreats in Italy in the future. And he's doing some amazing work with Bare Intentions too, which is more of his creative side of his life. And it was just amazing to chat with him. It was such a great way to finish. So thank you to everybody there listed for what you're doing. Please, everybody at home, check that out. But I just want to do a big shout out before I go to everybody that was a part of Man Cove Wellbeing Talk Show Extra, which was another stream of videos we did. The biggest one for me was my Racial Trauma and Black Lives Matter podcast, where I sat down with some amazing human beings, Craig King Cooper and all of his friends and family that he knows, where we just talked all about Black Lives Matter and everything that's happening with that. And it was a very special time for me to hold that space for them, especially as a white man in the UK who's pretty privileged. It was a very special time for me to really deep dive and hear what's going on and what it's really like with this situation. And I'm very proud of that episode, and it was very special. Thank you, Craig, for allowing me to set all of that up. Then I sat down the amazing Kenny Marmarella de Cruz, where he talks about how he supports men. Absolutely amazing guy. He sent so many podcast guests my way, doing amazing stuff with his Men Speak support group. So please go and check out the support groups, guys, if you want to be held in a space. Absolutely amazing guy. So thank you, Kenny. Thank you to John Eli again. We talked about mindset coaching. We had an amazing chat all about that. We've been good friends ever since. Thank you to Karen Goodson, who was an amazing patron of mine, but also shared her journey with her brother's suicide and how that all panned out, and her work in the spiritual realm. Absolutely amazing, Karen. I love you very much. Thank you to John Gavin Gould, who was a good friend of mine from the theatre that I used to work in. We've been friends for years. An amazing artist. We talked about the power of creativity and mental health. So go and check that out if you fancy it. Thank you to Rosie Withy, where we talked about working through shame and how that all pans out in her work with horses. Absolutely amazing chat. Thank you, Rosie, for being such a good friend. And then a big shout out to my partner, Carla Jo Garrity, who is a mindfulness teacher and has been with me for the last 3.5 years or however long it's been now. And she's been such a supportive person in my journey of healing, and we're both going to go on our healing journeys together, and we'll probably both be back at some point in a joint project. So yeah, do check out for that. It's going to be very, very special. So thank you, Carla Jo, for everything you do for me. It's been absolutely amazing, and she's going to support me on my healing journey. So I just want to thank everybody so much for supporting Man Cove Wellbeing. I'm going to miss it very much. I hope you get lots of value out of it in the long term. And before I go, as always, I just want to thank all of the patrons that I had in the sort of 8 or 9 months we had. They all contributed per month financially to everything I was doing, and it meant the world to me. I wouldn't be able to do this without you guys, really. So I just want to sign off for the very last time, and then we'll head over to my chat with John Eli and Kieran, 2 separate interviews, which is amazing. So I really want to thank the amazing patrons that I had: Mike Morgan, Emerald McLeod, Maggie Palmer, Daniel Billing, Roland Chesters, Hannah Irvin, Karen Goodson, Julie Ferris, Stella Stati, and of course Stephen Truelove and Darryl Osborne, who were my co-hosts on the Man Cove Wellbeing Talk Show. So I would usually say, to find out more about it, you need to head over to the website. The website now only has the farewell message. There won't be anything else on there. So if you want to see any of our videos, head over to YouTube and our podcasts for the podcast channels as well. So Apple, Spotify, and Podbean. So thank you for listening. I will not be back next time, but I just hope that you've enjoyed this journey as much as me. It's a very emotional time for me to move on, but it's been an absolute pleasure to have met everybody that I've met on this journey, and a big shout out to all of you. So have a wonderful day, everybody. Stay safe, support your friends, and take care of your nervous system. That's it for me. I'll see you soon. Take care and stay well. Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Boys Chat, and this time I'm back with John. How are we today, John?
I'm doing wonderful. How about you, Owen?
Yeah, not doing too bad at all, actually. And if people, as lucky people, can't watch this because they'd be aware that we always wear the same clothes in every episode. But luckily they can't see us, so we'll be fine. So we've covered quite a few topics. We did mindset, we did self-regulation, and today on episode 4, we are looking at self-belief. So a little 10-minute nugget of joy diving into that. So I think self-belief is something a lot of people probably struggle with on some level. We have experiences, don't we, that sort of wear us down, and people say stuff and we take it as our own, what they say. And it took me a while to get to a point of believing in myself, but to be honest, not in just one arena, all arenas: stepdad, massage therapist, a friend, a podcaster, different levels of that. So with the guys that you work with in your work, is self-belief a common denominating issue for a lot of these guys?
Absolutely. What I see happening a lot of times is I come across men who experience they went through an unpleasant circumstance, whether it was based on a choice that they made or a choice that somebody else made. And what they end up doing is, instead of labeling that experience as an event, they take it on as their identity. So they always see themselves as a career failure. They end up living life in the lens of always seeing themselves as being unlovable. They see themselves as being a jerk if they perhaps treated somebody poorly. So having the ability to set aside and look at experiences of the past as being an event, and really being clear of the character strengths that you bring to the table, is a skill that needs to be learned. A lot of people are more apt to learn helplessness than to learn hopefulness. And so it's a journey. It's not something that really happens spontaneously, but it is an area for breakthrough for men.
Yeah, it made me, when you say that, it made me think a lot about negativity bias too. So how we tend to, in our protective primal way, look for the negative in situations. I think that must massively affect self-belief, self-esteem, self-confidence, looking at the worst possible outcome. And then by not doing those things, you then reaffirm that you can't do it. And that's coming into narrative too, the stories we tell ourselves.
Absolutely.
And I guess over time, those stories, if they're around enough, you start to believe them and you take it on as a sense of identity, I guess.
Absolutely.
And that's something that I've definitely experienced with kind of what I've done. And it's kind of finding a bit of that safe and social where you can really flourish in that environment or in that activity, to start to build up that level of self-belief that you can probably do anything if you can do this. So would you say it's really good for people to tap into things that they know that they can do? So don't they say something about, if you challenge yourself too much, you'll crash and burn, and have a story around that? If it's too easy, you get nothing out of it and you don't grow. It's that sweet spot, isn't it? Is knowing where your sweet spot is. So is that something you kind of entertain as a theory?
Really so I have this activity that I like to do with my clients. And whenever I see that someone is at a place where they are unable to see the good in themselves, what I do prior to having a session with them is I ask them to show up to our session with a selfie picture of themselves. And so towards the middle of our session, I invite them to play a game of pretend with me. And I ask them to imagine they've been divinely gifted with a superpower in which they're able to bring healing and wholeness to the world. And that superpower is the ability to see into the innermost parts of a person's heart and soul. And I asked them to imagine that they've been given a task to reach out to a certain individual who needs this help. And this person has a life that is full of meaning and purpose, but for some reason they've lost their way. And being that they now have this superpower of divine insight, they are tasked with identifying, with finding this person and sharing every quality of greatness that they can see in that person. And then I invite them, I ask them, hey, are you up to this task? And usually they're up for a game of pretend, so they say yes. And so I invite them to pull out their selfie and to share with that person that they see in the picture all the qualities of greatness that they bring into this world. And it's very powerful because most people are able to see, they're able to encourage and try to save the world. And they're good at being friends to others, but many people are not good at being friends to themselves. Where we've mastered the art of loving others, but we haven't mastered the art of loving ourselves. But I think whenever we're able to take a step back and truly be able to identify the great things that we have today in the present, that is a powerful step that will allow us to move forward.
That's beautiful, and thank you for sharing that. It's such a great idea for the guys, and I quite like that actually. Yeah, sort of looking back onto yourself and having that
I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, I really like that. That's kind of probably the way I learn too. Visual ideas, tapping into imagination stuff too. And I guess a big part of what we're talking about here is fear. Obviously, fear is a big part of a lot of our existences, but I guess the fear of failure is going to put self-belief in its tracks anyway, isn't it? It's going to put a stop to it because you're like, well, I can't do it. I don't have enough belief in myself that I can pull that off, because there's a fear of failure there. So I guess a big mountain to overcome is that fear of failure. So I guess maybe our relationship needs to change with failure, would you say?
Yeah, I think not just our relationship with failure, but our relationship with ourselves, and recognizing where we're at. Any forward movement outside of our circle of being is going to be the unknown. And so we have to recognize, like you said, our relationship with failure is recognizing that it is going to feel awkward and weird stepping outside of that circle of our current circumstance. It's not going to feel familiar. It's going to feel different. It might be painful. It might be fearful, but it is part of the process. And if you're feeling fear, that's completely normal. It's to be expected.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. It's totally normal to feel any form of emotion, really. We're wired to do that. And I think the thing about something like fear of failure is like, well, what will be the outcome if you do fail? What is this outcome that you're worried about? Getting the narrative out of that. So I find that, relatability is huge, and being authentic is huge. I think so many people have been in a place where they didn't quite get where they wanted to be, or they failed in something, but they know someone else that did too. And that brings a level of connection and vulnerability, and you can build off that. And people always understand where you've been. So the outcome of fear, that's the hard bit. People don't actually have an answer to that, do they? They're just scared of fear. They're scared of failure in itself rather than any outcome from that. It's just the concept of failure, which is, when you think about it, it's a bit silly, really, but it just seems to be the way we're wired. But relatability is huge, isn't it, when it comes to
absolutely
stuff, human existence?
Absolutely.
So yeah, is there anything else you feel like you need to mention before we shoot off today?
Wow. I feel like I spill off a mouthful with that, with what I shared. I think I'm complete in this moment.
Yeah, thank you. That was really, really cool. And there's so many topics we can talk about, of course, and we will. I think self-belief is a huge one, and we just hope these little nuggets of information. I know this is a trauma-informed magazine show, but every segment on some level will be trauma-informed, because if you've had a level of trauma, a level of abuse, that will affect self-belief. So everything we talk about here today is trauma-informed. And I know me and John and some of the other boys too, is we want to step back a little bit from trauma. None of us necessarily are experts, so let's just keep our distance and have that trauma-informed edge to what we're talking about. That's what we've got Emerald and Millie and the other guys for. That's where they come in. But I want to thank you so much, as always, for joining me. Do you want to quickly let everybody know at home where they can find you if this is their first time hearing us?
By all means, you can follow me on Instagram at the.john, that's JOHN.Eli. And also you can find me on my webpage at www.john-eli.com.
Brilliant. Cheers, my friend. Awesome stuff. We'll be back next time with many more subjects to come. So thanks everybody for listening, and we're going to see you next time. Welcome back, everybody. It's another edition of Boys Chat. We're on episode 3 now. I can't believe, hang on, episode 4. I take it all back. It is flying by. And this time I'm with Kieran again from Breaking Bad. Obviously watched that recently. Breaking Barriers Australia. That's more like it. How are we today, Kieran?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks, mate. How are you going?
Yeah, not too bad. I've also done too many recordings today, which is good. Adds a bit of a curveball to this experience. So far you may have talked about triggers and sleep on previous episodes. I encourage people to check those out. Really, really cool. So today we're talking about nature. I know a lot of people know that nature can be really good for us. So we're just going to get into a bit more depth about it rather than just a blanket statement. So, we're encouraged to go out and be in the woods or even by the beach, or get our feet on the ground, feel the ground in our feet, really sense into the sounds of the birds, all that kind of stuff. But I know nature for you has generally been a sacred space, hasn't it? A space that you can go to that really gets you back on track in your nervous system.
Absolutely. You know, I grew up near some massive mountains, and I'll just go hiking all the time and just sit down and just really feel just the presence of the trees around me and the birds. In Australia, we've got so many different types of birds and different really exotic looking trees and plants and all sorts of animals. And, you know, before you know it, kangaroo or a wallaby might be hopping behind you. And I just find that for me in particular, it's so inspiring. You know, it just makes me feel so euphoric and grand, just being amongst nature and knowing that it's something that I can fall back on. You know, whenever I feel like I'm just so inundated with just schedules and bullshit and work and just getting lost in the real mental societal world, I kind of step out of that and just get lost in the natural world, you know. And I really feel like we're such empathetic beings that we're always picking up on the energy and the vibes of people around us. But when I go out into nature, you still pick up on the energy and vibes around you, but the energy and vibes around you is that of nature, which is just so miraculous and it's so healing, because you see something you've never seen before. You look at something from a different point of view. And for me in particular, I've just been so baffled and taken back by how resilient nature is. It's just, you know, you might see a tree which has fallen all the way down and almost died, or has had half of its tree cut off, and then before you know it, it's just sprung to life with new leaves and new branches, and you know, trees are so resilient. They're so resilient. No matter what, they can be chopped down, they can fall over, new trees can grow out of old trees, and you just start picking up everything and so many different perspectives and ideas and epiphanies, and for me, I pick up so many different epiphanies from nature, because you see the resilience in it, and you see the fact that everything in nature is chaotic, and like, you know, everything is absolutely chaotic, but there's a harmony behind that, the chaotic nature of the way everything's spread out. Like, you know, if you go to, I've flown into Malaysia before, and you see the big monocrop palm oil trees, like palm trees for palm oil. That's not a forest. That's not a real. That's just crap that's been put there for, you know, for mass industrial use. But if you go into a natural forest and rainforest, you've got fungi and you've got trees, leaves, and everything's chaotic. But then there's a harmony behind that chaotic nature. And I find that we as human beings, we're an expression of nature. You know, we weren't dropped down from the sky. We come from this stuff. We grew from it. We're part of this world. We are this world. We're an expression of this world. We're the intelligence of this world really manifesting itself and discovering what it is and what we are. And that's something which is really beautiful. And I find that you can really implement, or you can really pick away so many parts of your spirituality from it. You can get inspired from it. You can be uplifted from it. You know, when you have your feet off, especially when you're walking barefoot in Japan, I think they call it forest bathing. They just get lost in the forest. You know, and in Australia in particular, with a lot of the Indigenous Australian Aboriginal communities, the land is second nature to who they are. It's an integral part of who they are. And I mean, in fact, I've spoken to quite a few of them, and they say that this is what we are. You know, I'm not separate from it. I am it. And it's just, you know, I find that nature's inspired all the poets and all the people throughout history, and it's just, it really gives you that space just to heal. And I find that it's so, I can't talk enough about it. I can talk for forever, but it's just, I can tell you what, for me, like I said in the podcast before, like there are times I feel like I literally at the moment, I spend more time around trees and nature than I do people. And I find that's just amazing. I love it. It's a really good balance, and couldn't recommend it any further. Yeah.
Thank you. And there's bits that I picked out from what you said there. And I mean, we talk a lot about how important is to feel connected, but people seem to think, you know, a lot of time we mean people. It's not just people though. Feeling connected to things can be all things, and nature especially, feeling connected to that. And what I like to think about nature, from what you said, what I picked out from that is how expansive nature is. So if you think about the world that you live, it becomes quite insular and quite small, doesn't it? You have your world with the certain amount of people you have and your job, and then your habit of a bit of telly, or maybe a workout, or you maybe meditate, maybe you eat certain kinds of food. So you have this like little insular, you get a bit trapped, not in a bad way, but you're in this little vortex of your little mini world, which is lush, it's fine. But when you go into nature, you realize how much more expansive human experience is. And it allows to give you a bit of clarity, doesn't it? That the world is so much bigger than me. You know, this world that I'm getting really stressed about or obsessed about or feeling low about, when you go into those environments, you realize that you're such a small part of such a bigger, beautiful thing. I feel it's really enriching. It really allows you to do that. And I know we're both sounding like complete cheese balls talking about this, obviously, but you know, we all know exactly, they know what we're talking about, that feeling. Even like taking your dog out for a walk in the woods is gorgeous because you've got the connection with your amazing dog. You take some time for yourself. There's connection with nature and the dog itself. And it's just a beautiful experience to go and take a dog for a walk. I'm sure loads of people can relate to that. And how awesome it is to be by a river and hearing river water. There's just something about it, isn't it, that soothes you. Maybe it's just wired into us because so many people say the same thing. And from a trauma-informed perspective, obviously, this is what the show is all about. Obviously, we're saying that if you've had trauma that involved being in nature, for God's sake, don't go out, you know, seek support and be helped by somebody. We're not saying that, obviously. But for the majority of people, it tends to be healing, because I think nature is the essence of healing, isn't it? Like you say, it dies off, it grows back. It finds new ways to survive. Animals adapt. You know, special superpower things on their skin to protect them from predators. I mean, like you said, we all come from that space. I know from the story that we did with you, you know, talking about your story and how even with your breakdown and everything, it was still your go-to, wasn't it? No matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find that when I was embarking on my journey of healing, and like I say, it's healing. It's a process we go through. It's not, you're never healed. It's always a process of healing. We're ever consistently going through this motion of healing, like the motion of the rainforest just always goes on with vines and fungi and different ferns and trees. And you know, it's just this motion. It's like a big wave. It just keeps going. And I found that it just gave me a reference frame to just move onwards and upwards, and just give me space to heal and really just get lost in it. And I loved it. And there's a really good quote that I posted. Like to give an example, there's a post I did on breaking barriers. I shared a poem by a Persian poet called Hafiz. But he says, "Even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, 'You owe me.' Look at what happens with a love like that. It lights up the whole sky." And then underneath that, I captioned a really good quote by Lao Tzu, which says, "Nature doesn't hurry, yet everything is accomplished." And I think that is the most brilliant take-home message, because he's talking about nature, but don't forget, we are nature. We're an expression of nature. Human beings are as natural as it gets. And, you know, and that goes to show a really strong message for the healing journey that, you know, nature doesn't hurry, yet everything gets accomplished. And like, we're not talking about accomplishing the goal of being healed, but you'll be accomplished in your journey of healing, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, definitely. That's really nice. Some brilliant quotes there. And like you said, we all, not everybody, but most people seem to be drawn to that. And if the pandemic has taught us anything, we didn't realize how much we needed it until we were told to stay inside. And it's great to have a garden, still not quite the same. And you just see right now with everybody in the world how insanely important nature is. Even, like I said, beaches and being with friends and family, having picnics outside. Having a picnic inside is never going to feel the same as one out somewhere in an epic field with an amazing view or something. So it's like, for whatever reason, we probably have said the reason, we are drawn to be in nature, like you said, because we are part of it. So there must be a deep connection there, which is beautiful. And I find, there's loads of cool meditations out there where you can do nature meditations. So they guide you through going through nature. One of our colleagues on Man Cove Wellbeing does that. It's beautiful, and I pick images, put on the screen that mimic that, and people find real value in that if they can't get out of the house. So it just shows that, even when it's sort of created artificially, it's still beautiful, but ideally never as good as the real thing. So I just want to thank you so much for, yet again, your amazing insight and your amazing way of explaining it too. It really pulls me in. So if anybody wants to check out more about you and check out some more awesome quotes that you share, where's the best place?
Yep, so you guys can find me on Instagram. The name is Breaking Barriers AUS for Breaking Barriers Australia. And would love anyone to jump on board, give me a follow. I do a lot of posts about nature and mindfulness and healing. So I'm really big on this and do my own little rants sometimes. So just, give me a follow and would love to get in touch.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I just realized something before we go, I meant to mention, how people often go to networking for their business. So they go to a room and you do a little pitch and then you have some one-to-ones. It can be all a bit awkward. It's a bit anxious. But the big thing now is net walking. That's huge, especially in the UK. So you go out to, meeting in the woods sounds weird, but you know what I mean? So you go to a woodland area and then the business people come along and you go for an amazing, gorgeous walk and you walk alongside people and you talk about your business. And apparently it's amazing. It totally changes the atmosphere and energy of you as well, being out there. And so a commonality too. There's no commonality in a room, is there, as such? But there is commonality in walking. So I just want to mention that because I really wanted to talk about that net walking. So check online for anything in your area. There's loads of support groups too that do that. We walk in nature and talk about stuff. I think it's amazing. So yeah, check it out. So if anybody that hasn't heard it yet, me and Kieran do an amazing one-to-one interview about his story, a bit more about breaking barriers too. So that's on our YouTube channel and on all our podcast channels. Just type in Man Cove Wellbeing and look for episode 3 of My Trauma, Your Trauma, Transcending My Trauma Journey. So go and check that out. So thank you, Kieran, as always, and I will see you for episode 4 or 5. I've lost count.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, no worries. Cheers, everyone, for listening, and let's crack on with the show.